Welcome back to Triple Threat Podcast. My name is William Muzel, and today, alongside Ishan, we are going to be talking about the bubble. And where are we starting off today, Ishan?
Well, we're actually going to start off outside the bubble in Chicago, as just like 20 minutes ago, Jim Boylan got fired from the Bulls. And you know what? As a Bulls fan, I would be so excited. Like, I'm not a Bulls fan, but I've seen this guy pretty much wreck the team, wreck the chemistry, piss off so many players. And now that he's finally gone, they can maybe get a competent coach to help build this young core. Because they have a lot of promising talent, such as Levine, Carter, Kobe White, Chris Dunn, Markkanen, yeah. And so now, if they get a better coach, things can finally come to fruition, and then maybe they can even sneak into the playoffs.
And I think this is the team that really needed this. They have on paper a roster that should be competing for a playoff spot in the East, and under Portland, this just wasn't happening. And he lost the locker room, and they weren't playing with hustle or intensity. And when a team loses that effort and passion, I mean, there's no chance for you. And we'll get to that a little bit later with the first team in the West. But if you don't play with passion, if you don't have the players under you fully committed, you're not going to get anywhere. It doesn't matter. You could have LeBron James, but if he's not motivated, if he's disinterested, you're not going to do anything.
Yeah, and within like 3 days of him getting hired, there are players on social media already complaining. Like, I know Levine and Wendell Carter complained that he was making them do extra practice, not giving them appropriate rest time. And a few weeks ago, Daniel Gafford even said on Twitch, yeah, I don't really like him that much. So that says a lot about a coach when the players in the span of a year have just grown to dislike you a lot.
I mean, it should be a boost for any coach that comes in, because all the players are going to instantly love them because it just doesn't matter who it is, as long as it's just not Boylan. So I think that the players will be drawn to their new coach, but they might have a too high of a standard for themselves, like, or what coach they can bring in, and they'll probably be disappointed by whoever they get. So it could go either way, but it'll be hard to see them make the playoffs next year as well.
All right, so now that we have that over with, let's get to the bubble. And let's get to the team that definitely disappointed. Your team, the New Orleans Pelicans. Anything you want to rant about?
The bubble was not kind to them. We'll be certain about that. So they had the easiest schedule in the bubble, and they went 2-6. Very, very disappointing for them. The thing is that this roster should be competing for a spot in the playoffs.
100%.
And the way they were playing before the bubble, before the lockdown, they certainly looked on pace to do so. They were winning a lot of games. They looked like they were playing with intensity. They looked like they were playing with passion. And the defensive end really just got them. The problem is that they just lacked the intensity and the effort, and they just didn't look like they cared enough. They didn't look like they wanted it. All the problems that you saw with them, the open three-point shooting, and you'll see Alvin Gentry at the end of the game. He'll be like, "Oh, they shot really well tonight. Every team shoots really well against us." It's not luck after that. That becomes a pattern. It becomes, you're not closing out. You're not setting your defensive right. Look at another problem on the team: turnovers. The team has no passion or direction on offense. They have no direction at all on offense. It's basically just an AIU team. Get to the best player and see what happens. Alvin Gentry has 0 set plays, so that could easily be a factor in that. He's letting the players do what they want, and it's not working because we don't have any organization. So that was a big problem for us. And then you look at rebounds. Josh Hart's the second leading rebounder of the team. It's about effort here. And you just see that our third leading rebounder had an average of 4 a game, which was Brandon Ingram. So you just look at that and you just wonder, where's the effort? Where's the hustle? It's terrible defensive performance. I'm pretty sure there's only a couple players with a positive plus minus, and they're all the second teamers, and Kenrich, Jalil, Frank Jackson, Cheatham.
Yep,
and then
exactly.
The big problem is just those turnovers. I mean, they give the ball to the other team. They're very inefficient on offense, and they just, it's all about these effort things. And I think if you can get a coach with passion or some offensive direction, because you give these players some direction on defense, you tell them what to do, and they can execute a game plan. But you could see the articles of Lonzo Ball look checked out. I mean, I don't think these players were resonating with Alvin Gentry's style of coaching, which is very hands-off, very relaxed. I just think that that's a problem with this team. So I think they need to bring in someone in with some passion and with some X's and O's that can get them organized and get this team firing on all cylinders. Because you look at this roster, JJ Redick is lights out. I think he's a top three shooter in the league, easily. You look at Brandon Ingram, who's emerging as a top 10 player. You have a top tier backcourt defensively in Lonzo Ball and Drew Holiday, which probably one of the worst defending backcourts in the entire bubble, just by just because their terrible effort. It was just disappointing watching them. You would see these half-hearted closeouts, these easy three-point jumpers, just no help side defense, no rotations at all. And then you got a lot of young players coming up. You got Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Jackson Hayes, Zion Williamson. Then you got a great point guard, Frank Jackson, to lead the second unit. So this team should be doing a lot better with the talent that they have, and I think they need to get someone in with some passion and some experience. So hopefully, no Jason Kidd, if if you're a Pelicans fan like me. But what were your thoughts of watching the Pelicans?
I agree. When you have a young team, you have rookie Zion. Brandon Ingram is actually. Let me just look at the
He's
stats
he's
here.
22 still. He's
Yeah,
younger than a
you have
lot of
three
players.
players over 30, and one of them is Etwan Moore. And then you have like 6 or 7 players under the age of 25. And you're not going to give this team that's very young, very inexperienced, especially in a playoff situation where it really matters, if you don't give them any direction or guidance and you kind of stay hands off, like what more do you really expect? You can't have them come up with their own set plays. Like this is not Ty Lue and LeBron. This is Brandon Ingram, who's in his like third or fourth year. This is rookie Zion. This is rookie Jackson Hayes. This is 30-year Lonzo Ball. Like honestly, I think they definitely need to replace Gentry. And also going back to your point on the assists and turnovers, Drew Holiday led the way with 4 turnovers, then Lonzo with 3, Ingram with 2.8, and Nickeil Alexander with 2.3. And then there are about 4 or 5 other guys that averaged another turnover. And there were only 6 guys that averaged more than 2 assists per game. And that's definitely despicable. When you have so many creators, you should be able to distribute the ball, especially when you have a point guard like Alonzo Ball, who's a pass first guy. You would think that, they'd be able to distribute, find the open man. But another part of that, once again, falls on the coaching. So I think Gentry is definitely somebody to blame here.
And then just not taking out people when they need to be taken out. I don't get the love for with Nicola Melli because he got 20 minutes a game and shot 15% from three. And I know he's a great shooter. Like we saw that in the Euro League with his entire career there, but he just wasn't cutting from the NBA 3-point line. Like 15%. You should not be giving 20 minutes a game to a guy like that. Etwan Moore got 12 minutes a game, was shooting 25% from three. The people that you want to be your shooters are just not hitting their shots. So give it to JJ Redick, who was lights out 47% from three. You got to give it
9 threes a game.
like you have to give the shooters that are hot the ball. Brandon averaged 50% from three. So you got to see who are the players that are performing and play them accordingly. Like when Drew Holiday is shooting 26% from three, you can't just be like, oh, he's a great player. We think he's a phenomenal player. Let's play him more minutes. He'll eventually get out. Play the hot hand. Play the Frank Jacksons who are coming in and having a spark on defense and an offense with his effort. Play the Nickeil Alexander Walkers. You have to reward players for playing well, and you have to discipline players for playing poorly. And with Alvin Gentry, that just wasn't happening. So this team needs some direction, and a coach is definitely the first step in that direction.
All right, so moving on to the team that beat the Pelicans
Twice.
Twice. The Sacramento Kings. They definitely exceeded my expectations, but once again, I also think that there is a coaching problem with this team. I've been saying that for the last year because this team has De'Aaron Fox, Bogdan Bogdanovic, great shooter, Buddy Hield, 3-point champion. You know what I mean? They have guys that excel at a faster pace. And then when Luke Walton comes in and runs a much slower pace, that affects the team negatively, and they really had to adjust to that. Because a year prior, they were I think number one or number two behind the Hawks in pace. And this year they were closer to the bottom. So I feel like while they did do well in the bubble and they exceeded my expectations because I thought they were gonna go, I thought they're gonna do much worse. I still think that there's a lot of room for improvement here.
And De'Aaron Fox was very impressive.
He
I mean,
was.
his 3 point percentage was pretty disappointing at 24%, but he was averaging 23 a game, close to 24, and was doing it on both ends of the court. 7.6 assists, very impressive from him. And I thought that
He was healed.
when he played the Pelicans, he was eating us up. Especially Bogdan Bogdanovic, he was having a career game against us, and with his 3 point ability, I think that he it was really beneficial for the team. And one thing I did like about Luke Walton is when he had a hot hand, he kept Bogdan in the game and kept Buddy on the bench, and vice versa. So I think that's something that was very. I know Luke didn't do much well, but I think that was something that he did do well with, was keeping the hot hand rolling. So I was
Yeah,
impressed with that.
100%.
And that
Um,
and then Jabbar had a good spark off the bench with
he
around 10
did.
points a game in 13 minutes.
Um, and then there was a Harrison Barnes who averaged 14. Not the best efficiency, but it was still pretty solid. Even Kent Bazemore contributed, former Hawk.
It was a average bubble performance for them. I don't think there was any expectations for them besides to be bubble fodder. Rashawn Holmes obviously was quarantined from the beginning because of his DoorDash incident or whatever service he was using. But a pretty average performance by them. Moving on, we have the San Antonio Spurs missing the playoffs for the first time since Pop's first year in charge. So,
That's still crazy to me.
and they
What do you
could have
think?
made it in easily. Like they
Yeah,
performed very well in the bubble.
they did.
And
100%.
Demar's mid-range game is so lethal. It is it's on par with the Kawhi Leonard's, the Brandon Ingrams for the one of the best mid-range games in the game because he is lethal from there. Like he's not a great three-point shooter, but he'll get a mid-range shot. So I think you put DeMar in the 2000s, 90s, 80s, he'd be a phenomenal player. But he's still a great player. Averaged 20 points a game in the bubble, 5 assists, very solid performance for him. Only 2 turnovers a game. I thought he did very well leading the line. You got guys like Derek White and Rudy Gay and Kelvin Johnson to Dejounte Murray playing very well behind him. So I thought it was very inspired performance by them. I think Pop did a great job rallying the lines and trying to get them in a late playoff push, and they were half a game back. So I thought they were
Yeah.
very impressive.
And I'm first of all a big Derek White fan. Like 38% from three on 8 attempts per game, plus being a solid playmaker, averaging 5 assists, and hustling on defense. I like that a lot. But I also saw a lot of emergence from some of the younger guys. Keldon Johnson averaged 15 points in 7 games on really good efficiency as well.
Yeah, 69% from three.
66 or 67, 69, nice, and 88. And then, as you know, the guy that I stand, Lonnie
Lucas
Walker.
Samanic. Oh, another guy. He likes
Oh yeah,
Samantic too, though.
yeah, I do. I like a lot of these young guys, but Lonnie Walker, he's definitely coming into his own. He wasn't the most efficient, but he did do well from three, 39% from three on 4 attempts. But he was confident. He looked, he was taking shots. He looked better, and he really has some serious potential to be like an all-around kind of combo guard that can give you the scoring, give you the shooting at least at a minimum. He has the potential to be a great defender with his height and length and his just unreal athleticism. He played point in college, so he definitely has some playmaking experience when guys like DeJounte Murray and Derek White are out of the game. And so now that DeMar DeRozan or LaMarcus Aldridge's future with the team, with that window looks to be closing very soon, I think once you give more minutes to Lonnie Walker, Derek Wright, Keldon Johnson, DeJounte Murray, I think this team will be back in the playoffs within the next 3 or 4 years. And if they, kind of tank a little bit and get some guys in the 2021 draft class, Jalen Green, I'm looking at you, this team will be lethal.
And one player I don't really don't know how to read is Jakob Pertl because sometimes he looks good, and then against the Pelicans, he looked very clumsy and very inefficient. So I didn't know what to make of him because he led the team in plus minus, but he just didn't shoot well at all. And I thought he was pretty disappointing besides just gobbling up rebounds.
Yeah. He also, I think, was a plus minus leader within the season. So hopefully, with more minutes, kind of like with Lonnie Walker, some of the other younger guys, with more minutes, his experience, his and getting more experience under his belt, I think his production will improve.
I mean, this team is incredibly young. You just look at the age around, like just like the Pelicans, they've got only a couple guys over 30. Tyler Zeller, who was a bit part player, DeMar DeRozan, who's a team leader, but he he's not going to be the face of the franchise for much longer because you've got so many up and coming guys that'll take a spot. You got Rudy Gay and you got Patty Mills, and that's it. I mean, it's a very, very young roster, most of it under 23.
Yeah, DeJounte is 23, Lonnie Walker is 21, Keldon and Luka Samanic are 20, and Derek White is 25. And I think those five guys are going to be, the next wave of Spurs players. And I don't know when Popovich is going to retire, but he's got five or so young guys to keep an eye out for. And as we know with player development, this team is damn good at it. So definitely keep an eye out for the Spurs in the future.
Especially in this draft, I feel like they'll find someone in the rough because of the situation during Corona with not having any having much tape on players. I think they're going to do a really good job with this draft with their development team and their scouting. So I think that they'll do a really good job finding some hidden talent in this draft.
Yeah. So
Moving on to the team of the bubble, 8-0, Monty Williams, Phoenix Suns. What did you make of this inspired Phoenix Suns team?
look at the Suns, man. So inspirational. First of all, Monty Williams is definitely earned my respect. You've always been high on him since the Pelicans days. You even told me last year he's going to do great things in Phoenix, and damn right, he did some good things in Phoenix. Devin Booker, all bubble first team, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
He led the way with 31 points, but I was really impressed with the rest of the team as a whole as well. Dario
Ricky,
Saric put up 15, was pretty efficient, 50% from three on almost three threes a game. DeAndre Ayton, when he was playing, looks like a guy that can be a beast in the paint.
3 offensive rebounds a game is incredible.
Yeah, 14 and 9, just really good paint beast. Cameron Johnson definitely surprised me. Um, we saw his shooting abilities, and I think he'll be a really good wing going forward, along with Mikal Bridges, who's going to be that two-way wing, kind of like that Swiss Army knife guy
Mm-hmm.
that can complement any lineup and elevate the ceiling of any lineup. And then, Kelly Oubre is always great. They got Javon Carter, who can be very solid off the bench. They got the Tank Master campaign, Ricky Rubio. So they have a lot of pieces in place. And I think that this draft, if they can get, a long-term point guard, we can be seeing this team in contention in the next couple of years. They got their number one scorer. They got a plethora of wing talent that kind of reminds me of what Boston has, where you have that number one guy like a Tatum or a D Book in this case, and then you have three or four other wings that can score and defend and help you out in so many ways, like Hayward or Jaylen Brown. And then what this team does have that Boston doesn't have is a interior beast of a man. Like, he's a man, DeAndre Ayton, and then now they can attack and get their point guard of the future. And they got great coaching. So this team looks set up for the future. I think last year when they traded their pick to Minnesota, we didn't really know the direction of the team. But now
Especially
everything
trading
is coming
TJ
to
Warren for
fruition.
cash considerations.
Oh yeah. But now we know the direction of the team. We know what to expect. We'll definitely have higher expectations that they may or may not hit. And so I feel like some people will be disappointed if they don't go 82-0 in the regular season next year. But this team looks really exciting, and I see a really bright future ahead of them.
And I think the most impressive thing about this team is I don't know if a single team did this. They had not a single player with a negative plus minus, and they had six guys with a plus minus of 7 or higher, which is pretty outstanding. I mean, the team went 8-0, obviously, but having six players above 7 plus minus, Cameron Johnson with a plus minus of 12.3. I mean, it was really, really great to see this team do this well. Free throw shooting was
That's a
lights
lot.
out. They had seven players above 90% free throw shooting. This was just an inspired team. I was really impressed by them, and I was really cheering against Portland last night just to see this team get into the playoffs because I wanted to
Yeah,
see what they could
I
do.
wanted Karis LeVert to hit that shot.
I know it was off target to the left the whole time, but I wanted to
Yeah.
see a Suns versus Blazers play a tournament, but that wasn't to be because Memphis turned it around against the Bucks who were resting. But
So we can obviously say that there was a little bit of some suspicious activity there as Taylor Jenkins, the head coach of the Memphis Grizzlies, was Mike Budenholzer's assistant coach in Milwaukee and Atlanta. So they know each other quite well. And there might have so there's a little conspiracy theory that there's some suspicious stuff over there, but I really had high hopes for this team coming into the bubble. They obviously did not meet them. John Moran is probably my favorite player in the NBA. I love this dude. He has
oh,
a chip on his shoulder regardless. Like he deserved that 8 seed, but the NBA really wanted Zion. So he came in with the underdog mentality as always. He didn't perform the best, especially from the efficiency department, but
especially against the Pelicans, he was pretty dreadful against the Pelicans,
yeah.
which is pretty hard to do.
Yeah. I was very disappointed at the game. I'm like, Joe, what are you doing? But
That was Drew's one great game that he had in the bubble.
also Jaron Jackson, what was it? Was it a meniscus?
I think it was a torn meniscus and his
Meniscus. That's really disappointing because in his first 2 games he was averaging 22 points, um, 2.5 rebounds, which is not great for a power forward, but also 2 blocks and a steal and a half. So he definitely could have helped this team, maybe even reach the 8 seed.
and one player I was incredibly impressed by was Grayson Allen. I mean, he looked like a different player. He had a streak of a couple games with 20 plus points. He was lights out from three, was shooting
Seven threes,
47%. I
46.9%.
mean, he looked really incredible to me. He hit every free throw he had. I mean, he looked like an inspired player. He looks like the long term option at the as a shooter. I think getting him in the trade for sending out
Conley.
Conley to the Jazz, I think that was a great little pickup by them. And I think that he's going to be a great running mate for John Brand in the future because his shooting is going to be great for this team because you just look at what he did, and if he can continue doing this, I mean, he had what 4 games above 20 points,
I think so. Yeah.
and he just smacked the Pelicans around. And he only had 2 personal fouls a game. I mean, we got to give him credit for that.
It's getting better. It's getting better. Much better. But I think going forward, look, I'm gonna. I guess I'll narrow it down to like the Hawks, the Pelicans, the Grizzlies, the
Spurs,
Suns, and like the Bulls. Out of those 5 rebuilding teams, with what they had, I still think the Grizzlies maximized the most out of what they had. They were able to get Jonas Valanciunas out of Marc Gasol, and I love Valanciunas, one of the most underrated centers in the league.
had a triple
He,
double last night, didn't he?
yeah, he did. He's just a bruiser from inside, great rebounder, can score, can even potentially stretch out. They obviously got John Morant and Jaren Jackson, who will complement each other so nicely in the West. And once Jaren Jackson kind of gets out of that foul trouble and maybe boosts the rebounding, he's going to be a top 4 or 5 power forward in the league. Brandon Clark, oh my God, the steal of the draft last year, a guy that has the potential to defend multiple positions. He can score, and in the regular season, he had very low volume, but he did have solid efficiency from three. And then you have guys like Kyle Anderson, Dylan Brooks, DeAnthony Melton, even Josh Jackson, if he can get his act together, that
I
will
think that's
complement
unlikely.
that can complement this team so nicely. So I'm definitely high on this team. I'm high on a lot of teams.
Another team you should be high on is the Trailblazers. They look like a whole new team with Nurkic back in the lineup. And you look
Yeah.
at their team; they had some. It was a very thin roster. Only 10 real players got some minutes, and you look at their only 5 players above 10, above 8 points, above 9 points a game. But you look at those guys, and they played incredible. Gary Trent, can we talk about this guy's
Man,
improvement?
that
Because I love to see this. Gary Trent
all the
has
Blue
been,
Devils are coming out strong. Frank
yeah,
Jackson, Gary
it's been a good
Trent, Grayson Allen.
Brandon Ingram.
Oh yeah.
It's been a good Blue Devil bubble for the Duke boys. So Gary Trent, very inspired. He got up to 35 minutes a game, averaged 17 points off 50% shooting, 48 from three, averaged assist and rebound a game, a little average on that point, steal a game, plus minus of 5.7. I was really impressed by him, and I did not see this coming because when he came into the, was he a second round or undrafted guy?
Early second round.
I was very impressed by him. So Nurkic came back with like a beast again. I think that really changed the dynamic of this team because with Hassan Whiteside leading down the 5 spot, I think that it's a little bit too heavy lineup, but Hassan does a decent job off the bench, coming on, getting 6 rebounds a game in 16 minutes. So good stuff by him. And then you look at the additions of Carmelo Anthony, and his spark of 16 points a game is very nice.
Yeah, and then of course Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum in the backcourt is just awesome. Both guys ranked in the top, I'd say 30 in offensive impact metrics, and these two are probably. Would you say that they're the best backcourt in the league, like excluding the Warriors?
It's up there definitely. I nothing comes to the top of my mind right now of a better backcourt, but I think Damian is inspired, and I just want to see him go far. I mean, I think he's gonna be a real trouble for the Lakers to handle if they make it past the Grizzlies, which
This
they.
man averaged 39 points, 50, 45, 90, 10 assists, and a steal and a half. Like,
I just don't know who's gonna be guarding him against the Lakers. I mean, I just don't see how the Lakers can contain him.
no, he can, I think he'll definitely take a game and even 2 games if this
I
team really can pull it together.
and they've got a good post presence. If you want to go a really heavy lineup, you got Hassan Whiteside, you got Nurkic. If you really want to patrol that uh, the inside in the paint and control Anthony and LeBron and Dwight and JaVale, you've got a great roster to do that, and they've got nothing on the perimeter that can even match what the Blazers have. So I think it's gonna be hard for them to contain this team.
There was only one player that I was slightly disappointed by, and that's Anthony Simons.
Oh yeah,
I know he got 10 minutes a game, and he obviously didn't get the
he didn't
looks.
deserve 10 minutes a game for what he did.
He didn't get the volume, but like 27% from the field and 14% from three, and not even a singular free throw is a little disappointing in my books. And like I think last game of
We
the
were
season,
high
we
on
were
him
resting everybody.
with that
Dude went
40-point
off.
game.
Yeah, dude went off, and I think he has some serious potential. So I was a little disappointed to see him kind of, fall a little bit like that. But hopefully he'll improve. So now we got the 7th seed,
Is that the
and
Mavs?
that will be the Dallas Mavericks. Yeah,
This
so
team looks fun to watch, and I think it's going to be
they are.
it's good versus the Clippers. It's going to be a really entertaining matchup here. I think
Luka versus Kawhi.
you look at Kristaps. Kristaps looks like he's healthy again. He's averaging 29 a game again, and then
38 from three.
yeah, he was very impressive and 8 rebounds a game. I thought this. I mean, he's got to watch his fouls a little bit. Averaging 4.6 is a little risky up there, but
Definitely.
I thought Kristaps looks healthy again. It's really encouraging to see that. Luke is back, and then you guys like the shooters. You got the Seth Curry, 50% from three. That's going to be a much needed addition. And then
Finney
um,
Smith.
Finney Smith. I was very impressed by Finney Smith. I did not see this coming. So you want to talk a little bit
Yeah,
about Finney Smith?
12 and a half points, 8 rebounds, but 5.3 threes a game on 40% efficiency is what they need, especially when Tim Hardaway Jr., another great shooter on their team, kind of had a down had a down bubble, I guess, and he was going 40% from the field and 28% from 3 on 7 attempts. So it was nice to see Finney Smith step up and take that shooter role along with Luka and Kristaps. So I feel like if Finney Smith and Seth Curry keep playing the way they play, and Tim Hardaway Jr. steps it up in the playoffs, this team is going to be like Hall of Fame flexible release, Hall of Fame limitless range from three in the playoffs. Luka, Kristaps, who's obviously a great shooter, Tim Hardaway if he steps it up, Finney Smith, and Seth Curry. I think it was very impressive to see a lot of this perimeter shooting and a lot of their shooters step up in the playoffs in the bubble.
Uh, what did you make of DeLon Wright before it? Because uh, he had a pretty tough time in the bubble.
Yeah, I definitely thought he was gonna help out this team as kind of like the backup point guard role, but in 20 minutes, 3.6 points on 34.6, 12.5, and 60% efficiency is just that's
It's
just
just
not it,
not going to
man.
cut it.
Yeah, and so he'll definitely have to step it up in the bubble for a team that has depth but not the best depth. But it was kind of nice, and it was kind of nice to see JJ Barea
Mm-hmm.
play, but
36.
he wasn't very efficient, and Trey Burke wasn't very efficient. So at the point guard spot, they're going to need their backups and whoever is starting to step it up because point guard is arguably the most important position in the league, and you can't have your starting point guard shoot or average 9.3 points per game on 23 minutes with 36% from the field and 29% from three. That's just not going to cut it.
I just think that it's a very top heavy lineup, and they're going to have to get a lot more out of their reserves. So it's a team that could get a game or two against the Clippers, but there's just no way they're passing the Clippers. There's just no way. But the next team we got is the Jazz, and the Jazz were a team that was pretty disappointing to me, if I'm being
Oh,
in
100%.
all honesty. So um, wasn't the best bubble for them, and I think that they were lucky to come out of. What was the record of the bubble?
I think they were either 2-6 or 3-5.
It was very disappointing from them.
Definitely below 500.
And they should not have won that game against the Pelicans. They just gotta. I mean, it was like a 13-point lead with like a in the fourth quarter, and then you got no set plays, and you can't close out a game, so you lose that game. So if they played any other team with that kind of lead, there's no way they're gonna get out of that. And then you got some very disappointing performances. Emmanuel Mudiay. Uh, I really wanted to see more from him, the guy that deserves more coming over from New York. Plus
Mm-hmm.
minus 9, almost minus 10, basically.
Wanted
Just
to see some more from Ed Davis and Tony Bradley too.
yeah. And then you got
Backup bigs.
Joe Ingles had a decent spark from three, but defensively he's pretty poor. Uh, Obviously, you got your Rudy Gobert, your Donovan Mitchells, who play well. Um, Donovan Mitchell, 22 points, 38% field goal percentage. A little inefficient, but still a decent performance from him. Conley, those workout videos, I was really expecting him to be like a triple machine out there, but that's why you never believe
He
everything you
did
see on the
average
internet.
38% from 39% from three on
Yeah,
seven
that's
point two
that's
attempts per
that's a
game.
lot better from him. But
So I feel like he's definitely stepped it up because I don't even think he definitely was not the second leading scorer in the regular season.
no, not at all.
And I
One guy
also
that
expected a little bit more from Clarkson too.
he did have some games where he ate though. Against the Pelicans, he had like 30 or something.
He did,
I guess
but
that
there were
doesn't mean
also
much.
some other games where he was not at his best.
No, but it was a pretty disappointing experience, pretty disappointing bubble for them. And I just think that the Nuggets are gonna have a very easy time with them because this is the team, the Jazz, that you looked at them going into the season. You thought there'd be a contender, but obviously you got some injury concerns, uh, and then you got some disappointing, underperforming players. But I think that this is a team that might get 4-1 by the Nuggets. I don't see this being a very competitive series.
I think that I think that the Nuggets obviously had a pretty good bubble, but I wouldn't count out the Jazz entirely, as they have some inconsistencies and they have some struggles, especially in the regular season. But I feel like Donovan Mitchell can definitely step it up in the playoffs, And, if he uses his strength and athleticism to his advantage and actually plays good defense, and Rudy Gobert averages more than 1.5 blocks per game, and their whole bench steps up, I think that they could make the series slightly competitive. But I'm with you on this. Realistically, I don't see them going more than 2 games
I mean, they just look very
against the
lethargic.
Nuggets.
I just don't think that from their form, their recent performance, I just don't think as a team they should be competitive with their roster, but they just with what they've been playing and how they've been playing, I just don't see it.
And I think Donovan Mitchell is one of my other favorite players in the league. Like, definitely top 5. I got his jersey and everything, but he really needs to become a multi-dimensional player for this team to contend. Donovan Mitchell right now can give you buckets. He can give you buckets at any time and any type of shot in the clutch. But what else can he really do? He's not the best playmaker. 5 to 3 assist to turnover ratio is not great. He's definitely a more underwhelming defender. So what more can he do besides scoring? He has the tools, he has the physical abilities, and I think he has the potential to, become a more multifaceted player. But until he really steps up his game and does more than just score the ball, and especially at a 6'1" frame for this shooting guard position, if he can do more, then the Jazz will be contenders. But as of right now, just having your best player be just a score first kind of guy and nothing really else, I think that needs to definitely change.
And moving on, we've got the fifth seed Houston Rockets, who will be without Russell Westbrook for the first couple of games against the Thunder. But he had a plus minus of -10. I did not think that that was that low. Like, that is very disappointing and very below Russell Westbrook standards. So when I looked at the stats, I just couldn't believe that.
Yeah, he's definitely taken less threes a game, which I like.
3 a game, very nice.
Yeah, much better especially for a guy like Ben McLemore to come in shooting 40% on 9 threes, or Austin Rivers shooting 38 on 5 threes, or definitely just not Eric Gordon shooting 11% on 9 threes, Daniel House, or even Covington. But I think this team is going to have a really tough time against the Thunder, especially against Chris Paul, who was on this team for 2 years prior, kind of knows what they're about, knows their system, knows Mike D'Antoni, knows Harden's strengths and weaknesses. They got Gilgeous-Alexander, Steven Adams. They just have a roster that's cohesive and can play well together. And this team, really, besides Harden, their next best player without Westbrook is probably Covington.
Yeah,
And
that's
Covington had 9 points a game on 35, 25, and 70%
but
splits.
that's not really
So
where he thrives. I mean, he could be the defensive heart of the team, and that's what
he'll
you
be the
really need.
defensive part of the team, but when you have, but he's only one man trying to stop Chris Paul, Shea Gilgeous,
I didn't say it's gonna be
Steven
easy, but
Adams.
I'm just saying that his offensive metrics shouldn't really be what you're judging him based off of.
I know, but I feel like he should have been more efficient. He should
Yeah,
have been more of the 3 and D guy
I mean, he was
than
still their
just
second highest plus minus player on the team.
the D guy.
And then
But
I want to see some more of Bruno Caboclo.
he's always 2 years away from being 2 years away.
He is, but
That's my analysis on him.
he was efficient when he played. 4 minutes, 3.5 points, made every three shot, made every free throw he shot. I mean, he was
Had a
efficient.
positive plus minus.
So I mean, I just want to see a little bit more of him. So,
Yeah. And
but
guys like Gordon, PJ Tucker will need to step up.
and then Rivers, you saw what he can do. I mean, he could score
Mm-hmm.
41 points a game. Well, not a game,
Yeah.
but he scored 41 points in a game. So, it's going to be a hard time. So let's talk about their opponent a little bit in the Thunder, because this is a team that I really want to see do well. I think
Mm-hmm.
that this is the team I'm
I
probably going
think
to be cheering
everyone's rooting
for.
for them. It's just hard to
Yeah,
root against them.
I mean, they got rid of Westbrook, and Westbrook's a very polarizing player, and they brought in guys like, I mean, this trade that they got for for Paul George was incredible. They got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, one of the best young players in the league, 21 years old, averaging 17 points a game, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, only 2 turnovers. A very, very great young player. They got the entire draft, the entire draft pick from the Clippers. You look at the trade that they got for
And they got
Russell Westbrook,
Gallinari,
and they got Danilo Gallinari. Forgot about that. Their third best player on the team.
who's a lights out man.
You get Chris Paul for the Westbrook trade and two more draft picks. This team is set up for the future, and they're set up for now because they're playing incredibly well.
And
So
they somehow traded Carmelo Anthony with a $26 million contract to the Hawks that didn't even want him for Dennis Schroeder. We just bought him out and let him go. Kind of sad, but Dennis Schroeder is obviously great. But the guy that I want to talk about is Darius Baisley.
oh, he's been fun to watch.
He's been he didn't go to college. He did that thing where he got the internship at New Balance. He got the shoe deal, and he worked on his game for the year instead of going to college or going to a professional pathway. But it's definitely seemed to pay off. 14 points a game, but 47% from three on 5 attempts per game is just something else. Plus, he's a bigger guy, so he can get you some boards. And for his size and for his position, he's actually a very solid playmaker. They called him the best playmaking big in the draft last year. So he's going to be fun to watch, and he's going to complement this team so nicely, being an efficient and just overall very talented big man.
And Lou Dort was also very impressive during the bubble.
Oh, we
26.
like Lou Dort.
We do like Lou Dort. Um, we like the Arizona boys last draft.
Yeah, we did.
Cheatham and Dort. Um, he had a positive plus minus. He got 10 points. He got 4 rebounds, assists. I mean, he was a pretty solid performer for them. I think he's going to be a valuable asset. But what
And
I
he'll be
want
a
to,
great on-ball defender.
I just want to see if Robertson can get back to health. I mean, it's going to be a tough ask to get him healthy that quickly. But if he can get up to 70 to 80%, I think he's going to be a valuable asset against the Rockets because you're going to need someone like him to play defense against Harden. So I know right now he's probably not capable, but if you give him a couple days, maybe a week, hopefully. I'm just hoping by game 5 maybe that he's back to being like 80%.
Look, I think this team can dispatch the Rockets 4-2 pretty easily. When you have the point guard and you have so many great surrounding pieces that can play with him and a great coach in Billy Donovan, this team could really give the Lakers or Clippers a run for their money almost as much as the Nuggets could.
And
If
I
not
just
even
don't
the same level.
I just don't see who on the Rockets can stop Baisley and Adams. I mean, they've their tallest player sometimes when they're starting 5 is 6'7". So stopping guys like Adams and Baisley is going to be very hard. And I think that Shai Gilgeous is going to give James Harden a tough time. So I think this team is going to easily make it to the second round of the playoffs. So I'm really excited to see them.
Yeah. I think one thing, as you said, rebounding. Steven Adams is one of the best offensive rebounders in the league. Just kind of honing in on that skill with Westbrook as he would take the defensive rebounds and go in transition. But I think that if guys like Shai Gilgeous and Gallinari and Chris Paul are not hitting their shots, you have Steven Adams there over a 6'7" PJ Tucker to grab offensive boards and then just eat in the paint with Darius Baisley. So I think that this team knows that Houston is vulnerable and they're gonna capitalize on that. And I think a 4-1 is likely. Hell, even a sweep is likely. But I think worst case scenario for them, 4-2.
And then let's move on to the most improved player in the bubble, in my opinion. It's Michael Porter Jr. and the Nuggets. He's the leading
Yeah.
player in minutes. He's the leading scorer, and he's the leading rebounder. So he's just been incredible. I mean, I'm
54
so
tonight.
happy to see MPJ back. I'm so happy to see him because he's been phenomenal.
Man, all those Knicks fans that yelled at MPJ in the draft when they took Kevin Knox couldn't have been more right. I feel bad for them.
But
Yeah.
I'm excited to see their young players coming together. And Slim Jokic is back. That is fun to see Slim
Jeremy
Jokic.
Grant definitely stepped it up too. 18 points a game.
I mean, they're just getting some consistent performers off the bench, and I think this is going to be I think they're going to dispatch easily the Jazz. So
Hmm.
I think that'll be a fun series to watch. So this is the team that they got their risk paid off, and they got solid, if not phenomenal, performances from MPJ. And if the trend continues, maybe next year we see that with Bull Bull. I mean, we already saw glimpses with it. I mean, he's been at times great, at sometimes poor, but we've
Yeah.
seen the flashes of what he can be. And I think that's all you need to see from him this year. 50% from three, very impressive. 80% from the line. Um, I'm just excited to see him come back to being healthy and being Bull Bull that we know. I mean, this season he's been paid less than his draft night suit cost. So I think that we
Wow.
really, yeah, I think this season he's making 87,000, and the suit costs 100K. So I think that Bobo next season, I really want to see him do well. I'm just thinking, how's he going to fit into the team with Slim Jokic? Because competing for that spot's going to be pretty difficult.
But if they go like a taller lineup with MPJ, Bol, and Slim Jokic,
What, are you going to
to
play Slim
where
Jokic at the four? Or
I think maybe Bol is like a stretch four or something. You have two like elite shooters and MPJ and Bol, and then you have a guy that can distribute it to them.
yeah, I mean, and then even Jamal Murray running up the point, I think this is a pretty decent roster. I think all they need to really do is get a good number two in there.
Hmm. I think Jamal Murray. What do you think about Jamal Murray? I think he's a very
I
good player,
I don't know what
but
to make of Jamal Murray much,
he's
but
very inconsistent.
he is. There's some nights I'm like, oh, Jamal Murray looks nice, but I think he's just pretty like solid point guard, like probably 10 to 15 range.
Yeah, and I think that my thing with him was I wanted him to shoot more threes over the bubble,
Yeah, but
and well, he
I don't think
did.
he should be doing that.
Well, he did. It wasn't the best, but in the regular season, he was definitely a lot more efficient. And I think that if he kind of gets that down and still has the confidence to shoot more threes, I think that'd be definitely more beneficial for them.
I just think it's crazy how Mason Plumlee's averaging 3.9 assists a game, third highest on the team. That's pretty crazy to me.
Wait,
What
Mason
what's
Plumlee?
he's the third leading assist. I don't know how, but he's the third leading assister on the team.
Wow, that's kind of impressive.
But
So
moving
moving
on,
on
we
with
got
the
the
Clippers,
Clippers. So
and
they had a solid bubble from them. Lou Will came in late, but was a solid performer when he came in. Kawhi Leonard played phenomenally, 29 points a game. Paul George played great. I mean, it's just a great roster. I don't think there's much to say about them.
actually, what do you think? Do you think it's going to be the Clippers or the Lakers? Because it was a close game when they played together, but in the third quarter when AD got hot, that was Kawhi was not playing, and also the Clippers did not have Lou Will or Montrezl Harrell on the inside to
Mm-hmm.
kind of help combat AD. So, what do you think about this team going forward now that Harrell and um, Lou Williams will be back in the playoffs and ready to play?
Well, the Clippers are the much better shooting team. You just look at their players, obviously. Paul George, Leonard, their best shooter, Larry Shamet, who didn't shoot well at the bubble, but I mean, we know he's the best shooter on this team. Um, I think they've got a great roster, and then I don't think that it's going to be difficult because no one on the Lakers can guard George and Kawhi, and LeBron and Davis, no one on the Clippers can guard them. I mean, okay, Kawhi could probably lock up LeBron for a little bit, but it's going to be hard. But it's a very difficult series to predict. So it just whoever gets hot first, if whether that's Davis or whether that's Kawhi, whether that's Paul George, or whether that's LeBron. But I think it's going to be a very interesting series. And I don't know, man. I'm just talking my way out of this one because I don't have an answer for you.
Personally, I'm still gonna stick with the Clippers. I think the shooting is gonna make a world of a difference when you have so many guys that can shoot and create their own shots beyond the arc, especially with a Lakers team that without LeBron and AD are pretty thin defensively, in my opinion.
And
Or
especially,
yeah,
yeah, you. But I mean, if
especially on the perimeter.
you look at Dwight Howard, eventually he could. I mean, he's one of the better defenders.
But
But
like Dwight and JaVale are, like post
and
guys, and on the perimeter,
they're
you got
just two
Caruso, Rondo.
they're just two stylistically opposing teams, which makes it really hard to judge who's going to win. It's just whether you think that it's going to be a paint game or a perimeter game, because these teams match up completely differently. They're completely differently stylistically. But you look at coaching. Obviously, I think Doc is the much better coach over Vogel.
Yeah,
Um, I just think that you got Ty Lue as an assistant, which isn't that bad, and Ty Lue's worked with LeBron. I mean, obviously, it was more like LeBron worked Ty Lue worked for LeBron, but I still think knowing LeBron's tendencies, being on a team with him is going to be very important. He can pass on to his players. Kawhi, obviously, the best defender in the league, and I think that he can do a decent job on LeBron, or if not a great job on LeBron. But I think the X factor is Davis, and I just don't see who can guard Anthony Davis on that team because it's not
no,
Zubac.
Montrez is
I,
severely undersized.
and then Joakim Noah, I don't want to play him
No,
at all. So
no,
I think it's can AD step up in the playoffs because we saw he did a great job against the Blazers. He did a great job against the Warriors as well. I just want to see what he can do, and I think that matchup is going to be the most important part of the team. Whether if the Clippers get hot shooting, I think they win. If I think AD gets hot, I think they win. I just think that's the key to the game, and whichever happens first is going to be a tough series. It's going to be a very tough series to predict. But the Clippers are more cohesive, and I think that they're probably a better roster overall. They've got great depth on the bench.
definitely.
I mean, you got two players nominated for Sixth Man of the Year. That's a testament to your depth. So
And that's for multiple years in a row.
exactly. So I think that it's going to be a very interesting series, and I'm looking forward to it. So hopefully the Thunder or Nuggets don't ruin that for us.
Yeah. Man, imagine seeing LeBron and AD versus Kawhi and Paul George. Like that's probably gonna be better than the finals matchup.
So let's do it. Let's talk about the Lakers a little bit. What do you make of them in the bubble? They rested a couple of players. LeBron James with the groin, probably just load management. So
Yeah.
they did not look great last night, obviously, but I guess they probably weren't trying. They had the 1 seed locked up, but they did have LeBron playing, so you can't judge that too much. But
Here's my thing with the Lakers. Defensively, obviously they were one of the top teams in the bubble. And when you have so many creators on the Clippers, being able to, shut them down is great. But also when you have
Caruso averaging
Kawhi
23
Leonard,
minutes.
the best defender in the NBA, Paul George, a consistent, like probably one of the best defensive wings in the NBA, you have a great coach in Doc Rivers and other good defenders around your team, like I think that this team is going to get exploited offensively. You have one guy shooting above 40% from three, and then everyone else is somewhere in the 30s, and they're definitely a lot in the 20s. And even J.R. Smith shooting 9% on 2 attempts a game, which is just abysmal. And I think that if the Clippers play the perimeter game, which I bet Doc Rivers will do, it's going to be a big weakness for LA, for the Lakers that will be exploited. And so I think that I have the Clippers winning just because of the Lakers' offensive struggles, but I really need to see this team, you know, blossom offensively because even if they do make the finals, they have to go up against either Milwaukee, top 3 defense, Boston, top 5 defense, or Toronto, top 5 defense, or Philadelphia, who has Simmons and Embiid and another,
Well, we
I
don't know
think a
about
better top 10
Simmons.
defense.
We don't know if
Oh
Simmons will be
wait,
back
yeah,
by
no,
then.
not Simmons, but actually no, Philly's probably not going to make it. But the other 3 definitely top
I mean,
5 defense.
Indiana, you got to get T.J. Warren. I mean, that's
Statistically,
over. I mean, that's over. You play T.J. Warren.
yeah. So
But
I think that this team has way too many offensive struggles to be a championship team.
and something that's crazy, AD and LeBron combined have a plus minus of negative 13.2, which I mean, I wouldn't follow that too closely, but I thought AD's been really impressive. I mean, I've watched AD. He's one of my favorite players. So obviously, I don't hold too much against him wanting to leave, but I really hope he does well. But It's hard to see. The shooting is very disappointing. Davis 23%, LeBron 35. When Kyle Kuzma is your best shooter, it's a problem. Markieff Morris is their second best.
When you have guys like Danny Green, J.R. Smith, Alex,
Danny Green needs to find his feet. He needs to find.
Yeah, who are like they're to shoot the ball and they're not, providing that. That's definitely tough.
25% from the free throw line. He might have an injury or something that he's hiding from us, because there's no way Danny Green is shooting 25% from the free throw line, because
we've seen what Danny Green can do.
Idiot can like granny style of free throw from 25%. Like 25% from the free throw line. Lonzo does better than that. Lonzo's garbage at free throws. Like, I don't know how Lonzo is that terrible at free throws, but Lonzo does better than that. So there is something off with Danny Green, because there's no way a shooter of his caliber should be shooting 25% from the charity stripe.
Yeah.
But I think the Lakers have very little depth. It's a very, very poor roster. You got Davis, James, Kuzma, and you got KCP, Dion Waiters, Caruso after 23 minutes a game.
That is team.
I love seeing Caruso play 23 minutes a game. There's no way he should be doing that. Talon Horton Tucker, a guy that we love out of Iowa State, he's playing solid, but nothing spectacular. Nothing spectacular. But he's actually a good depth. Dwight Howard's decent depth, but he's still Dwight Howard. Quinn Cook's actually been pretty decent.
He has been.
Another Dookie playing pretty well in the bubble.
Not too efficient though.
Nah, not great, but he's decent depth. And then you got J.R. Smith, Jared Dudley, Markieff Morris. A combo, 14'4.5". It's gonna be interesting. If I had to put money on it, I'd probably put the Clippers down right now. But it's up to AD. If AD steps up, I don't think the Clippers can stop him. But I just don't see anyone stopping the Clippers from shooting. So if the Clippers get hot, it's over. So I think whoever wins Game 1 probably gonna set the tone for the whole series. I think Game 1 is going to be very, very pivotal. So we'll see about that, but that is our West rundown for today. We'll hit up the East tomorrow, I believe, or Sunday, whenever you watch this. It may not even be that day. So we'll try to get the East out the day after or 2 days after we get this West episode uploaded. But the playoffs are coming, and I cannot be any more excited for that. Quick finals prediction right now.
Give me Raptors Clippers. Oh yeah, I have the Clippers winning up 4-3.
All right, I'll counter you with a Boston Clippers. Boston takes it 4-2.
Oh wow, I would not be surprised if Boston took it. If Tatum is hot.
I mean, he's only 22.
He's only 22.
Well, that'll do it for today. It's been fun. Next time, it's been Triple Threat Podcast.